My name's Dan Klimke, and I wanted to take the opportunity to make sure that for those of you in the room who are newer to understanding where we come from and our history and heritage, and also to the people who are listening online who may not have made the connection or didn't know about our history and heritage, to at least run through a bit of our product portfolio story so that you know what products are part of this company, what came forward from Fluke Networks into NetScout, and that we're now covering and carrying forward in NetAlly. So I wanted to talk about, that is working, how we address access network challenges with the product line, a bit of positioning about the products, and a use case that's a really good example of how people have put this into practice. First off, the customers whom we serve. Our primary customer in terms of users of our products, not unlike you folks, people who, if not have the title, at least have the role of network engineers and technicians, sometimes network administrators at remote sites of large organizations. Primarily enterprise IT focused, although we do sell a lot of product to field service technicians, whether that's companies who are systems integrators, service providers who are doing system integration work like their business services groups, utilizing our tools for network assessment, deployment, validation, and documenting. So if you are a person who plans, validates deployments, if you maintain wireless networks or wired access networks, if you handle escalated problems from frontline technicians, you're the kind of person who would be utilizing our tools. So, of course, the generic, the world is coming to an end kind of slide, right? Where our environment is subject to lots of change, lots of new devices. It's a dynamic, changing environment, and that leads to a complex environment for our customers to handle and manage. Whether that's the number of devices that are connected, how widely we're deploying IoT now, the various different applications for power over Ethernet. It's just a constant churn of technology, both from a standard standpoint, refresh of network equipment, network infrastructure. And our interest is how can we help people with this kind of situation? A couple of months ago, we did a survey with the folks from Spiceworks, and part of that survey was asking about the kinds of challenges that people were facing in managing and operating their networks. And so there are a few key categories: network device deployment, network management and maintenance, and network-related organization and staffing issues. There was others, and security was one of those others. But what really came out loud and clear from everyone was the volume of concern and angst around managing change. How fast things are changing, trying to keep up with change, refreshing the infrastructure, making sure that they can keep up with the technology road bus as it's screaming down the highway. The other one that came out strongly too, that we feel like we have a unique way of helping solve, is this concern around qualified people. How difficult it is to find qualified, knowledgeable, and curious technicians who are willing to learn and able to stick around in network operations. Many of the respondents to the survey talked about being short-staffed. The staff that they do have is pressed for time. We can't get everything done. Frequently get this kind of comment: need additional help with network-related tasks. How do we help solve that? So this environment that we're trying to plug into here is this: you've got this complex network environment, you've got technical staff at remote sites that don't have the skill level or the ability of the experts who typically are at the headquarters or central locations within an organization. So you've got less skilled, less qualified people out trying to manage those remote networks. There's an issue around, well, how do we connect those remote staff with local experts, or remote experts with the local site staff, right? The other behavior we see an awful lot is the idea that there's really no standard test approach. I mean, I bet even amongst this room, You all probably follow a little different process from each other. If I gave you a problem to solve here, one of you might tackle it this way, another this way. There's some commonalities in the tools that you use, but I favor using this. I'm going to go to packets first. No, I'm going to go do this first. And I can do this with Wireshark. I can do this with my network management system. What we see happening out in these distributed organizations is this varied approach to testing and troubleshooting and gathering data makes it difficult to collaborate on problems. One of our customers, multinational company, the central network operations folks were finally at the point realizing how much time they were wasting trying to rationalize and normalize information coming from their different sites, where everybody at the site was using a different kind of tool to report on the same kinds of problems. So when there's no standard test approach, whether that's a process or the tools you use, there's inefficiency in how you're managing and running that network. So what does that lead to? Variable results, inconsistent incomes, mean time to repair takes longer. So we keep these things in our minds as we go forward thinking about our product philosophy. Mike and James talked about this, our mantra of simplicity, visibility, and collaboration. How can we make things more simple? How can we simplify a complex environment for users who are not necessarily, engineer level capability? So how can we provide tools that are easy to use? How can we automate the usage of those tools and the generation of the information so that the user can do something with it? We also believe strongly in this idea about the right tool for the job, the skill level, and the environment. That's why when you see the range of products that we have, there's simple, lower cost, very focused function products. And at the higher end, we've got multifunction, wired, wireless products with much more technical capability. Visibility gives people the way in to solve problems effectively. We believe in the power of portability. The fact that to see a problem correctly in many cases requires you to be there. Some companies will go the route of trying to instrument their network to as great of extent as possible. But we just know that there's no company that has the dollars or the manpower to 100% instrument every possible place in my network. Even companies that are capturing packets and monitoring packets full-time 24/7 around a network won't have complete visibility if you can't see the point of view of the network, see the network from the point of view of the client. And that's the beauty of having portability, to be able to go to where the problem is. And then collaboration. How can we make that remote tech more effective at their job and not have the network engineer have to hop on a plane, train, or bus to go out and go to the remote site to solve a problem? And that's why we're putting so much more investment into Link Live as a way of not just taking my test data off the tool and being able to document, have a report, here's what I did. Great, and that is great. Having the ability to document what you've tested quickly, automatically, fantastic. But more important, better, is the ability for people to collaborate across the organization. Using the data in Link Live, using the remote access capabilities in Link Live, for a remote expert to see, virtually see what the technician is seeing at the remote site. So the product line is kind of developed, as I said, kind of divide the product line up by what's targeted towards frontline personnel or technician level folks, what's targeted at network engineer level folks, tools that have the power to drill down into much more detail, have much more capability than perhaps the frontline tools do. And then Link Live being the consolidator of that data. So for those of you who don't know, so these are all the products that we've carried forward in the NetAlly world, many of which came from our former days at Fluke Networks and the G2 platforms from our time at NetScout. So Link Sprinter, Link Runner AT, Link Runner G2, the OneTouch AT, the G2, and there's a 10 gig version of that product, AirCheck G2, all of these products carry forward into NetAlly. Link Live that we've talked about, the test accessory, which is the Pocket iPerf server, and of course the air magnet products that Mike addressed earlier as well. So these are all of the products that have carried forward with NetAlly.
I had one. Is there one of the air magnets that didn't come over?
Enterprise. Air Magnet Enterprise stayed with NetScout.
But the code base is the same.
They diverged a while ago, actually.
So the hardware, enterprise sensors, and its software is not here.
That stays with NetScout.
They're on two different tracks now.
Correct. Absolutely. And the OptiView analyzer, that stayed with NetScout as well. So a case study to talk about, and you can take a look at this on YouTube. Memorial Hermann is a healthcare system down in Texas. It probably, I think, is absolutely one of the best examples of an organization that is getting the exact benefit that we had hoped people would get from deploying our tools. They speak very passionately about what it's enabled them to do. Their challenge, both for the frontline, for the desktop staff, and for network engineering, it's time. It's time to get everything done. It's time to get things repaired quickly. So the efficiency of the desktop staff was a problem. How they involved, the amount that they involved network engineering in frontline problems was a problem. Too many false escalations or really unnecessary escalations given to engineering from the frontline staff. And ultimately, it meant that mean time to repair was far too long for their organization. So what they did, they really took that right tool for the job approach, deployed link sprinters in the desktop staff team. Basically, network engineering says, we're going to invest and buy tools for that frontline team so that they're more empowered to solve problems on their own, and they won't be calling us for information they need because it's going to be in the palm of their hands. People who are up a level of notch in terms of technical skill and capability, G2 platforms, One Touch for the engineering team as well. The result, it really resulted in faster problem domain identification, meaning who, number one, is there a problem and who owns this problem? Does this go back to network engineering? Does this go to our desktop folks? Where does this root cause of the problem lie? Not that I necessarily have to solve it. It improved collaboration on the problem handoff. So when you did have to send the problem from frontline tech to engineering, the context of everything that user had already done was already in Link Live. The tests were already there. Because you know what it's like. Somebody tells you, oh, we're having a problem with blah, 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 and I've already done blah, 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 and here's that information. You're like, yeah, sure. I'm going to test it myself. I need to see for myself what's going on now. In this case, that test that the tech had done is already documented in Link Live, and the engineer can have instant access to that. The result was reducing the demand on engineering resources for frontline support. So they're able to focus more on their critical projects, deployments, and problems that take their level of skill to solve. And problems got resolved faster. And for them, ultimately, that means they're able to deliver better patient care. If we can fix those problems faster, if we can get both the patients and the doctors and the nurses back up to a level of service, the end result is better patient care, which is what they really care about. So that's what we've got. That is the NetAlly portfolio. As James and Mike have indicated, active development on a lot of different fronts, and we've got some exciting stuff coming out soon.